What if I told you that week 10 of the NFL season has given us so many goodies and so much insight into what is really going on in this league? And today we are breaking down the most important things to come from week 10. And some of the things I've got on the docket today include Kyler Murray playing out of his absolute mind. We've also got to talk about the decisive Pittsburgh Steelers win against the young Commanders. Next, on a more somber note, if you are here for my Buccaneer content, we had a chat about if Todd Bowles needs to go or not. We're also going to be touching on what I've seen from Bryce Young after getting back in that starting spot and why putting Anthony Richardson back as the starting quarterback for the Colts, which was just announced, makes all of the sense in the world. And of course, I won't be able to finish this video without talking about the absolute mess that is the Dallas Cowboys and what this Dak Prescott injury means, not only for the rest of the season, but beyond. And I'm gonna ask you again, why the hell you didn't listen to me on all of these things when I told you about them, whether that be in the off season or the early weeks? If you don't watch till the end of this video, you're going to be missing things like me calling out and telling you that the Arizona Cardinals were sneaky good. And you likely missed out on my prediction about Russell Wilson returning to form. Well, not fully, but returning back to some remnants of himself and how that is legitimately giving the Steelers a chance to win the Super Bowl. I'm telling you, you don't want to miss out. Smash that subscribe button. We are doing this year round. Hit the like, hit the notification bell to be alerted. We are hopping right into it. Let's go. After week 1 of the Arizona Cardinals holding their own against the Buffalo Bills, I told you that that team came out looking way better than any of us anticipated, and to be careful not putting their names in the conversation winning or at least being in the mix to win the NFC West. But Kyler Murray seems to have stepped into another level. Not only does he potentially throw the prettiest ball that you've ever seen, but he is absolutely commanding that offense. And you do not have to just take my word for it. Some of the stats that are absolutely glaring are that he had a 91% completion percentage. His QBR was 126. He was 8 for 8 against pressure, according to Next Gen Stats. And he completed those passes for 87 yards. Now, perhaps the most incredible thing from the weekend with Murray's play, the Cardinals gained 179 of their 266 total receiving yards after the catch. And that just shows you not only is the New York Jets defense reeling pretty badly since they let go of Saleh, but Kyler Murray is making the right throws at the right time in the right way. He clearly is at a place where he understands things on a level that only a few guys do, and it's time to get him in the national conversation. Mike Tomlin is a genius. I understand that he is not in the conversation with the Andy Reids or the Kyle Shanahans, although of course he's got more Super Bowls than Kyle has. And that's because this is an offensive league, and we all fall in love with play callers and their creativity and nuance week to week. But boy, does Mike Tomlin know how to coach a football team. You do not coach for as long as Tomlin has coached and have 0 losing seasons without being an absolute mastermind. And he has flexed his muscles on more than one occasion in this season, and week 10 just continued to make the case for why he's so great. Russell Wilson is now in a system and organization that has accepted him wholeheartedly, is not trying to change him, and has him leaning into absolutely everything that he does and has done in his career at an elite level. I'm not sure I have seen so many slants, flat, and go routes, and the occasional fade in one game in a very long time. We know that Russell's height limits his ability to see the center of the field. And what did Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers say? That's okay with me. You have in Russell Wilson an experienced field general who understands what and who he is at this point in his career, and he does not make mistakes. This looks like a guy with the confidence that should scare opposing teams, and I am grasping to find what the weaknesses are of this Pittsburgh Steelers team. They are going to be scary in this postseason, and everybody wants to laud the Washington Commanders, rightfully so. I'm on that bandwagon as well. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be a force to be reckoned with, and don't say I didn't put you onto it first. If you stop by my live stream, you know I think it's fair to say that Todd Bowles has regressed in terms of his defensive play calling and impact that he's having on this team. He has made more than a few questionable time management and game management decisions, and he's always been one of those guys who seems to be a better coordinator than head coach. But with some fairness, he is dealing with perhaps one of the worst injured seasons that I've seen the Bucs have in quite some time. I also think it's fair to be somewhat critical of Jason Licht for not bringing in defensive backs higher in the draft and trying to find these gems from other practice squads or just undrafted guys in general. The hits keep on coming in terms of the injuries. Obviously, with potentially our pound-for-pound best player in Tristan Wirfs going down with an MCL sprain, I do not expect him to be back after the bye, but the bye could not come at a better time. We need Mike back, we need Tristan back, and we are significantly reeling from a lack of a vertical threat, and that has shown up in the last 3 weeks. I think the case for keeping Todd Bowles comes down to something that Greg Auman said on Twitter, that you don't fire a coach who just took the two-time defending Super Bowl champs to overtime and played their asses off with a much maligned roster. The New York Giants have problems, will continue to have problems, as long as Eli Manning and John Mara are making the decisions on who should play quarterback at that organization. But this team has significant building blocks that can catapult them into contention shortly. There's not a ton of holes on this roster. What you're seeing with the emergence of some of these rookies, in spite of the train wreck that is Daniel Jones, they are still thriving. We understand that Malik Neighbors is a certified number one. We understand that he is a bona fide superstar once he gets the right person to toss him the rock. This is a guy who had 10 targets last week, and their running back, Tyrone Tracy, broke it off for a 32-yard run, is averaging almost 6 yards per carry. Say what you want about the Saquon Barkley move, about offering him a contract, which of course I hated, but it stings a little bit less when you've got a young guy in Tracy who seems to be holding his own and was over 100 rushing yards last game. This team has interior and an exterior pass rush, a serviceable offensive line, and they need to sprinkle a few things in on defense, which, with the way their GM has handled that in the last few years, I believe that they might be able to actually get it done and fill those holes. Now it's just a matter of deciding, are you going to go veteran QB since this is such a weak NFL draft, or are you going to go and get one of the young guys who don't necessarily jump off the screen, but will be undoubtedly an improvement over Daniel Jones? And you better not fire Dable. There's not a ton of guys walking around can coach their asses off on offense the way that Dable can, and he would get scooped up in 30 seconds if they were to let him walk out the door. He is far from the problem, and they need to start making the right moves at the quarterback position so you don't alienate that really good coach. With two young quarterbacks who have been in a very similar situation these last few weeks by essentially being handed keys to a franchise and then having it ripped away from them. Now, we can argue if they should have been pulled in the first place, but now we're seeing what happens when you give Bryce Young, for example, a few weeks to settle his nervous system down, collect himself, and reevaluate what or where he wants to be in. I wouldn't wish the Carolina Panthers situation on my worst enemy. And so for this kid to return and to see him smiling on the sideline, to see him joking around and comfortably just slinging the rock, I couldn't be any happier to see that. Quite frankly, we have no idea what the Carolina Panthers are going to be. We know that they have basically some very unknown guys at the skill positions, and they will likely be good enough to get them through the end of the season. But what you want to do now is, with an improving Carolina Panthers roster and team, you want to try to understand what is the next step, because going to do anything this year and probably not next. So you've got to try to squeeze whatever's left out of that team, and most importantly, Bryce Young, and evaluate if he can really play in this league, much less stomach a long-term future with that shit show. Now, secondly, Anthony Richardson has gotten his starting job back, and there was no doubt that he needed to have some type of consequence for bailing out in a division game on a critical third down late in the game and openly admitting that he was tired. That's pretty unprecedented. But what is not unprecedented is young quarterbacks not being given the appropriate time they need to learn the hardest game on earth at the hardest position. I understand that Shane Steichen is trying to win games, but when you take a player as raw as Richardson, you have no choice but to bite the bullet for a season or two and let the kid's development play out in front of your eyes. There should have been an agreement from the top down to Steichen that we are riding the highs and the lows of this player who, if pops, could be as talented as Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, will be a better runner than the two of them, and that's not really debatable. But Joe Flacco or Gardner Minshew or Matt Ryan or Carson Wentz has not been the answer, which is why I made a long video about Chris Ballard and how he has failed this organization on more than one occasion. If the Colts don't learn this hard lesson that CJ Stroud and Jaden Daniels are the outlier situation rather than the rule, they are going to continuously flip-flop and potentially alienate this kid and ruin the early start of his career. You have got to ride it out with Anthony. You have got to live with it and understand you are not going to win a Super Bowl this year. Look around you in the AFC. Just let the kid settle down, breathe, and allow him to fail. In order for young people, I sound like I'm 100 years old. In order for young people to thrive, they have to be able to fail and learn from their mistakes. And if you give them no grace and you put it on a national stage and you embarrass them in the way that they did by pulling Richardson after allegedly having the faith in his ability, you are absolutely cooked. And you're not going to get a free agent who wants to deal with that situation with an organization that has zero patience and zero understanding about the way that the damn world works. The Dallas Cowboys are back on their bullshit, or arguably never stopped being an absolute dumpster fire. I don't have much to say here because I'm sure everybody and their mother is having a conversation about what is going on. But there's a few things that I want to call out. The first question I have is, how did we go from getting updates that Dak wasn't even going to be placed on IR to now him being out for the season? I don't know what happens in that building, but if Jerry Jones doesn't start to see this as a wake-up call with everything else around him essentially breaking down and falling, and him getting questioned at every point, at every step by the guys that he pays, including the guys on the radio shows that he yelled at. If this doesn't put a battery in his back to step aside or to relinquish even the smallest part of control, this is a person who said that he believes that this team is still in contention with Cooper Rush. Somebody has got to grab the old man who has been yelling at the clouds. Listen, y'all, appreciate you stopping by. If you have a presence on TikTok and you want to hear some even more unhinged takes than you even see on this channel, you might want to stop over there and check it out. I will put the information for that. I'm having a ton of fun over there, trying to scale the amount I'm putting out, trying to keep up minute to minute. I'm going to be trying to put out some live streams throughout the week. I always appreciate your support. Please hit the like, smash the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Do whatever you have to do to stay plugged in to the Mish Monster Sports community, and tell me in the comments what you want to talk about this week before week 11. I'm not a huge fan of previewing the week because the NFL, we know, any given Sunday. I don't love hypotheticals when it comes to this. If there's a particular game that you want to talk through on a live stream or even on a short video, happy to do so. Appreciate you stopping by. I will see you next time.